In 1997, a team of researchers set up acoustic equipment inside a 5,000-year-old stone chamber in Ireland. What they measured stopped them. The chamber, built before the wheel, before written language, before metal tools, was resonating at exactly 110 hertz. Not approximately, not close, exactly. That's the frequency of the male baritone voice. It's also the frequency that modern neuroscience has identified as triggering a specific shift in human brain activity. From left hemisphere dominance to right hemisphere activation. From analytical thinking to pattern recognition. From logic to vision. The builders of that chamber didn't have oscilloscopes. They didn't have frequency analyzers. They didn't have the mathematics of acoustic resonance as we understand it today. And yet they built a room that hits 110 hertz. Precisely. That is either the most extraordinary coincidence in human history, or we have been catastrophically wrong about what ancient civilizations understood. Let's establish what we're actually talking about here. Acoustic engineering is not simple. Building a room that resonates at a specific frequency requires precise calculations of chamber volume, wall material, ceiling height, surface angles, and reflection paths. Modern architects use sophisticated software and iterate through dozens of prototypes to achieve targeted acoustic profiles. Concert halls, some of the most expensive buildings ever constructed, spend years in acoustic design and still don't always get it right. The Sydney Opera House, which cost the equivalent of nearly $1 billion today, had to be substantially acoustically redesigned after construction. Now consider this. Göbekli Tepe in Turkey is approximately 12,000 years old. 12,000. That's 7,000 years before the pyramids. 7,000 years before Stonehenge. The people who built it are classified by mainstream archaeology as hunter-gatherers, nomadic people with no permanent settlements, no agriculture, no organized civilization. And yet Göbekli Tepe is a precisely engineered complex of circular stone enclosures that acoustic researchers have now measured to produce controlled, resonant frequencies in every chamber. Hunter-gatherers. Building acoustically tuned ceremonial monuments before civilization supposedly existed. The official explanation is that we don't fully understand why they built it. That's not an explanation, that's an admission. Let's go through the sites, because this isn't one anomaly. This is a pattern. Newgrange, Ireland, 3200 BC, the chamber we opened with. The 110 Hz resonance. Researchers found the acoustic properties only activate when the chamber is full of people chanting or drumming. The structure was designed to work with human vocal frequency. The Hypogeum, Malta, 3600 BC. An underground temple where sound at 110 Hz resonates throughout the entire structure simultaneously. In one chamber, a male voice creates a resonance so powerful, visitors reported altered states of consciousness. Access is now restricted due to psychological episodes. Here's what makes this impossible to dismiss as coincidence. Modern neuroscience has now mapped exactly what happens to the human brain at the frequencies these structures were tuned to. At 110 Hz, the Newgrange and Hypogeum frequency, brain activity in the prefrontal cortex measurably decreases. The left hemisphere, responsible for linear, logical, language-based thinking, goes quieter. The right hemisphere, pattern recognition, spatial reasoning, emotional processing, becomes dominant. This isn't fringe research. This was published by researchers from the University of Cambridge and UCLA. At 1 MHz, the Great Pyramid Standing Wave, the brain enters delta wave territory. This is the frequency of deep dreamless sleep, of unconscious processing, of states where the brain consolidates information in ways that normal waking consciousness cannot access. At the 8Hz Schumann resonance, the frequency of the king's chamber sarcophagus, the brain's alpha-theta border is activated. This is the frequency of hypnagogic states, the threshold between waking and sleeping, the state that meditators spend years trying to reach deliberately. The frequency range used in the Peruvian temple, 200 to 900 Hz at specific intervals, matches almost exactly the frequency range that psychoacoustic researchers have identified as capable of producing spatial disorientation, auditory hallucinations, and altered time perception. These ancient builders didn't just stumble onto aesthetically pleasing architecture. They built instruments, precision instruments, calibrated to the human nervous system. So let's follow this where it actually goes. If these structures were precision acoustic instruments calibrated to alter human brain states, who built them? And what were they trying to do? Option 1. These were ceremonial spaces designed to facilitate genuine altered states for religious or spiritual practice. The priests or initiates who used them weren't having mystical experiences through faith alone. They were being neurologically shifted by the architecture itself. The building was doing the work. That changes what we think ancient religion was. Not superstition, not primitive belief, sophisticated neurotechnology dressed in the language of the sacred. Option 2, these were knowledge transfer systems. In cultures without writing, you couldn't record information in books, but you could encode it in experience. A state of right hemisphere dominance, of theta wave activation, of dissolved self. That's a state of radical receptivity. Information absorbed in that state is retained differently than information absorbed in normal waking consciousness. Ask anyone who's had a near-death experience, a deep meditative state, or a psychedelic journey how differently they remember it compared to reading a page of text. If you wanted to transmit knowledge that had to survive without writing, without printing, without digital storage, you'd want to encode it into experiences that the nervous system couldn't forget. You'd build rooms that rewired the brain. Option 3. And this is the one that makes archaeologists uncomfortable. They knew more than us. Not about smartphones, not about chemistry or genetics, but about the human mind, about frequency, about what sound does to consciousness. They understood things that we are only now beginning to measure with scientific instruments. And somewhere between their world and ours, that knowledge was lost, or it was taken. Now here's where the pattern recognition matters. Archaeoacoustics, the formal study of acoustics in ancient structures, is a legitimate scientific field. It has peer-reviewed journals, university departments, funded research programs. The data we've discussed isn't from YouTube videos or fringe websites. It's from the Journal of the Acoustical Society of America, from Oxford University Press publications, from research funded by the National Science Foundation. The data exists, the measurements are real, the frequencies are documented, and yet none of this appears in mainstream accounts of these civilizations. Not in the Smithsonian, not in school curricula, not in the documentaries that define how most people understand the ancient world. The standard framework of ancient history has a problem with this data, because if ancient people were sophisticated acoustic engineers calibrating buildings to human neurological frequencies, then the standard framework of human development is wrong. The story we've been told goes, primitive hunter-gatherers slowly developed agriculture, then cities, then writing, then science, then technology, a clean upward line from ignorance to knowledge. The acoustic evidence suggests a different story, that certain kinds of knowledge, specifically knowledge about frequency, consciousness, and the human mind, may have existed at a sophistication we don't give credit for, and may have been deliberately lost or suppressed during historical periods when that kind of knowledge was considered dangerous. We know this happened with the solfeggio frequencies. We covered that. We know it happened with 432 Hz tuning. We covered that too. The question this video asks is older and bigger. What if the suppression didn't start in 1939? What if it started at the beginning? Every civilization that built these structures is gone. Some collapsed. Some were conquered. Some simply vanished in ways we still can't fully explain. What they left behind are the buildings, the stones, the chambers, and encoded in those stones, for anyone with instruments sensitive enough to measure, A message. We understood something about you, about what sound does to your mind, about what frequency does to your consciousness. We built rooms to prove it. We left them for you. The question isn't whether that message is real. We can measure it. The question is why, in 12,000 years of human history, the civilization that finally has the instruments to read it is the same civilization that stopped teaching people how to listen. Follow Frequency Knowledge to learn more.